Terraforming is really hard, but that's okay because most of the time there's a very specific sequence of steps that you can follow to make something at least look semi-realistic. This rock, I use the exact same formula to make basically every single rock that I build. Same with anything that I do here with the actual shaping of terraforming. So let's go over the basics of terraforming first. Basically, it's all about elevation change. Say this is about how the outline of a normal hill from a 2D perspective looks at some point in Minecraft. You got a little hill and it looks kind of something like this. There's a few options of things that you'll want to do to this hill. Either you're going to want to keep it and just make it a little bit more detailed, or you're going to want to actually change how the hill works. So maybe you want to flatten out the bottom a little bit more and then make it very steep towards the top, and now you got a cliff face. Or maybe instead you want it to be a very sharp drop off, but it kind of gradually levels out like so. Or maybe you want it to be a real nice slope, so you do a perfect 45-degree angle, something like that. Or instead a little bit more natural, but just a little bit easier to walk on. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with basic terraining that's really just changing the angle of whatever terrain you're looking at. Let's look at an example of this in EchoCraft. So I've been doing a lot of terraining recently, a lot of terraforming in this valley area here. And actually, the next episode that I released is going to be all of this terraforming and finishing this valley area. So if you're interested in that, maybe consider subscribing, and then you'll be able to see that episode when it comes out. But you can kind of see here that none of this is standard terrain. None of these rocks or anything are standard format. None of this is custom generated, but the actual shape of the valley is normal. Like, the valley was here. These, as you can see, the biomes on top are original. So I always work around already existing features in Minecraft. You can make entirely new mountains or valleys or ravines or whatever you want. It's just a lot more work. I like to work with what's already here and just make it better looking. So here there were a lot of sharp edges, but they looked something more like this. It was just kind of dirt in a very steep angle. And you know, it's Minecraft terrain, but it doesn't look particularly pretty compared to something like this. But there's a couple of different things that you can do with it. There's what I did down here at the bottom, which is kind of hard to see, but it's basically just you're walling off parts of the terrain. So actually under here, here's the regular terrain that's been cut away a little bit. It was just dirt. It was just dirt going down like over here. But I would basically cut away at it just a little bit and then cover it up with a kind of bulbous rock face. So it would go up sharply and then curve in near the top. It's just basically big boulders all connected to each other. This one was more like a singular wall, but it's basically always just a bulbous and then grass at the top, and then the cliff is just a boulder. And up here, you can see the same thing. This looks a little bit different, but it's actually the same. It's just there's snow on top. So this is actually, in my mind, one big boulder as well. But because it's in the snowy area, you got the snow gradient from snow to calcite to diorite to the stone itself. And you'll notice all of these boulder formations have the same basic color pattern. Kill me about 5 to 6 times. So yeah, there's a lot that you can do with just a basic rock pattern when it comes to terraforming, but to build the rock pattern, you kind of need to know the process. Now, I'm just going to use the idea of this simple kind of semi-sphere rock here, and then replicate it over here. So let's say I want the rock to be kind of that shape-ish. in terms of shape. And then maybe I want it to come up to same height, about there. Make it about a semicircle. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to slowly raise the elevation of each side. And then every time you're going to not build on top of one of the previous layer. In like various different locations. So you're just slowly going to build up and up on top of each other until you get to the point where you're at a basic height that you like. And you want to do this just with pure stone. So all of your layout with the terraforming will be out of pure stone. Now, it's going to look super boring and not much better than regular Minecraft terrain at the start. But what's critical is the texturing and the extra detailing with the slabs and the stairs and the walls. So let's get the texturing blocks. So on top of regular stone, I like to use tough, mossy cobble, and andesite for shadows and highlights. So let's say I want to make a shadow. I'm going to put a shadow back here primarily. So I like starting with the tough in the shadow area, building out with mossy cobble and cobblestone. And it's not even so much shadowing as it is the bottom of the rock is going to be more compressed and a lot of times a darker color because it's next to like the mud and the dirt, and it's been weathered at the bottom a little bit more. And then at the top it's going to be not necessarily coarse, but maybe more slippery, more shiny because it's getting rained on. You know, that's the part that gets hit by the rain and the wind. So there's a lot of factors to consider. But there you go. There's some basic texturing done. You want to have the andesite up towards the top on the like upper corner, and then tough and cobblestone kind of along the edge near the bottom. So let's grab some of our detailing blocks. So we got stone stairs, andesite walls I like to grab some of, and slabs, cobblestone stairs, and slabs as well. You can get mossy cobble stairs and slabs and walls. I think it's sometimes a bit overkill. For this demonstration, we'll stick with this basic pattern, and also a tough slab as well. We'll grab that. So let's just go around. I always like going from bottom to top, so let's say that seems like a good spot. And I want to get actually another wall type. So let's get a cobblestone wall. Put one there. Actually, no. We're going to put one right there. Yeah. Put a slab there. We're going to put a stone slab there. And there you go. Now it's a lot more rounded. There's a lot more detail on the stone. And you got a bit of a boulder. Looks something like that. So very simple. But you can kind of understand the idea of how the process works. You make the basic structure with the stone, then you texture it with cobblestone, tough, mossy cobble, andesite, and then you do detailing with the slabs and the stairs and the walls. Not a super difficult process. You know, there are other block palettes that you can do stuff with. Let's say you want a much darker palette. So let's say we're going to make this a much smaller rock just for demonstration purposes. We got deep slate, and then maybe I want to grab tough actually as a highlight. Something like that. And there you go. That's a much darker color scheme. It's the same idea. You get darker towards the bottom, make it more compressed, and then lighter towards the top and some edge, and you kind of got to give some separation between the two to make it make sense. Now, let's check out EchoCraft again to see how we can actually apply this to natural terrain. So let's work with a piece of terrain, an extension of a piece of terrain that I've already been working on for a little while. This is something that I just built, and this little canal is still here. And you can see it's the same basic process, but I've done it kind of in a wall formation. So it's basically straight up, not much of a curve off, and it's turned out pretty well. It's kind of in this back area, and I flattened out this grass on top. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put kind of a boulder on this piece of the hill right here. That's all I'm going to do. This is a lot of blocks for one little area. It is a little bit overkill in terms of raw materials, but this is the variety that you need. That's the point. So I'm going to cut away at this a little bit, just so I've got a little bit more room to work with. I'm going to lay out the basic bottom of the boulder. So it's going to be something like this shape, and then it's going to go up and then curve in. there you go. I just did the same general idea, more of a bulbous shape this time. And there you go. I flattened it out at the side and then it rounded in. And now you've got a stone shape. And it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good at all. There's going to be more stones on this side, so of course this is not very well cut off. And there's a kind of a gap here, which I will fill later, if you let me explain. But, you know, it doesn't look very good. Basic coloring, texturing, whatever the word is. Whatever word you'd prefer to use, it doesn't really matter. So that should be the texturing. Yep, the texturing looks good. It looks like, you know, most of the rock texturing that I do. And now let's do a little bit of the detailing work. I'm actually going to kind of cut this off in a way that makes it feel like it is more rounded out. So more slabs on top. Might make one change actually. I noticed that this side looks a bit flat, so I'll put that there. And then maybe I'll put another piece of tuff there. And yeah, that looks really good. I actually quite like that. Now that we've got a rock done, you'll see that there's still kind of the area around it needs a lot of work. And something I'd like to do with this area is smooth it out and flatten this and make it blend more from the elevation here to the elevation down here. And I don't want to put another rock in the middle here, but I need this to be different. It looks bad at the moment. So let's do a couple things that will help us with that. So let's focus first on flattening out this area and making it feel consistent. I actually like working from the top with flattening. So I want to make a baseline for how thick I want the top to be for it to actually feel smooth. And smooth to you for terraining is different for each piece of terrain. So what feels good whenever you're building it for wherever you are is going to be different from whatever I'm building here. Usually to make a slope feel gradual enough, I like sticking to 2 or 3 blocks wide for each tier. That's colliding with a completely different spot. And this is a really weird outcrop, so just get rid of it. And there you go. Now that area is much more flattened out. And you just had to take it layer by layer, working it into whatever terrain you wanted to go around, and just making sure by each step that it feels natural enough. And we will detail this, quote unquote, to make it look better shortly enough. But I want to address this up here. Now, between rocks, what I end up tending to do is just putting... up here, there's actually some packed mud, which maybe I should incorporate a little bit more. But coarse dirt and rooted dirt are 2 very good options. So let's just right here incorporate some of that. Get the shaping a little bit different as well to make it feel like it has maybe collapsed in a couple of times. It's kind of been tampered with a lot. And it's not very stable. Ooh, yeah, see? I made a mistake here. There's a really weird outcrop. So we're going to fix this with something like that. And that should look a lot better. Although I'm actually going to replace this with rooted dirt. And then another grass block. And then something you can also do is actually just put a little bit of vegetation in these areas. You know, it's dirt and it's unstable, but there's still going to be stuff growing in there. So make sure that you show that off a little bit. Make sure there's a little bit of contrast and a little bit of detail pretty much everywhere. Now, with these gentle, gradual slopes, the best thing to do to just make terrain like this look better, just bone meal everything. Just bone meal everything. It always makes it look better, almost 100% of the time. Now, if you really want to be creative and very artiste about it, you can take the B-dubs route and place every single blade of grass by hand. And I have done that before in certain situations. This is not the common way of doing this, and it is not the most efficient. If you have very large pieces of area like this, which for me, this is not a center point of anything. This is background, practically. This is, you know, it is surrounding terraforming. It is not meant to draw the eye or move the eye anywhere. It's not meant to be a particularly statement piece. So I can just use some bone meal, remove the flowers when they pop up because I'm not in the flowery mood for this particular area, and then move on with your life instead of spending 20 hours painstakingly placing grass. You might have to remove a little extra tall grass here and there if it's building up too much. Sometimes the bone meal puts a little bit too much tall grass for my liking, at least. There you go. It looks way better already just because I filled it up with tall grass, and now it feels lush. It feels unkept, right? Because with terraining, a lot of the time, the more you have hills, the less unkept things are. But just in, I don't know how long that was, 15 minutes, I added that extra rock, I flattened this out, and I added grass, and I put a little bit of dirt there, and it looks completely different. It looks so much better in just a span of 15-20 minutes. And this is the kind of thing you can do all over your worlds. You can take little bits like that where you just got a little bit of awkward terrain, like here. I'm gonna do this very similar thing here. I'm gonna fill in this bowl a little bit, smooth out this terraining, and make it a little bit less thin up here next to where the edge of this bit of terraining I did is. I'm gonna flatten out this terrain a little bit, flatten out this terrain, and so it's a little bit more walkable across, and then fill it with grass, you know, put a path through it. And there are a lot of other types of terraforming that you can do. Like there's up here, I have the snow terraforming, which is very different. Of course, it's raining now. But these cliffs are a lot more sharp, and then they have piled snow on top of them. And another thing for terraforming, if you're doing anything in snow, doing different layers of snow is a massive game changer. It is super important to make an area, even just with like a platform here, doing layered snow makes it feel so much more dynamic. That is the essence of Minecraft terraforming to me. It is making something feel 100 times better with very minimal effort. Now, if you want to do maximal effort, you build custom trees, and I have an entire build guide video about that as well. You can go find that. Maybe I'll link it in the description if I remember. But yeah, terraforming, difficult until you figure out what the process is. And if you enjoyed this video, if you thought it was helpful, please consider subscribing and let me know what you want me to teach you guys next, because oh my gosh, there's so much building stuff that's it's just all over the place. There's just so much to talk about, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.